You gotta have a vision for your perfect life, and then and only then can you reverse engineer your business to give you that life you want, not the other way around. Because everybody tries to like, hey, and I was this way too. I get it. Like, hey, nah, just show me the life stuff later. I just need to make money now. I want to quit my job. I need to start. I got bills to pay, and that approach is not going to work because you wake up someday and it's 5, 10, 20 years later and you're still working your tail off and you're unhappy. Like, and that's not the recipe for success.
Welcome to the LandLife podcast with your host, PJ Riley.
Hey guys, welcome to the LandLife podcast. My name is PJ Riley. Guys, like I always say, if you're getting value from this podcast, and today you're going to get a lot of value, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Guys, today's guest, Jason Wojo. Okay, now, real quick, Jason, I know you're a dad, you're a husband. I'm going to go to your collegiate accolades, I guess. This guy, okay, now check this out. He studied molecular biology. Let's see here, at the University of Massachusetts. He studied immunology at Duke University. All right, now, Jason, on this podcast, you know, the listeners are incredibly intelligent. For me, though, bring it down. Maybe bring it down. State college level. Let's bring it to a state college level.
I got it. Okay.
Right on. Jason, how you doing?
Good, man. You?
Awesome. Doing
Fantastic.
great. What part of the country are you from?
So I'm in Wake Forest, North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice and warm all summer long, all winter long.
Man, it's a little sweltering right now, to be honest. I could dial it back about 10 degrees.
Right on. All right. So Jason, first of all, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Second of all, who is Jason Wojo? Like, give us kind of like a background of you personally prior to kind of the business career.
Yeah. Well, man, so at least you alluded to the education stuff. I wanted to have like let me back up. So I come from blue collar family, and so parents worked really hard, and that was the only model I had. So I'm like, well, I need to work hard. I need to have a job. I need to, and that's my only key to a great life. You get a great life by having a great job. And so because I had no connections, I didn't, nepotism wasn't an option for me. I had to get degree. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get a great education. So I went and, man, I got 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and a PhD, all for the hopes of like landing an awesome job that would have me, have a great life as well. Got the first job literally out of grad school, and realized within the first month, I'm like, man, this I just can't do it. Like, and I think I had experienced. There's a few things that I think that went on. Like I had some freedom in my grad school studies because basically you can set up some experiments, and as long as you time it correctly, you can kind of do what you want around that. And so I get that first job, and they expected me to be there all the time, and I just couldn't do it, man. And it's not, listen, I'm not a rebel. I don't have a problem with authority. I just didn't like the idea of somebody else controlling that much of my life. And so that's when I got into real estate. One thing led to another, left the job, ended up here working for Lifeonaire, that I partner with Steve Cook, the founder, on. I train people how to kind of create the life they want in a business with it. I do the speaking. I'm the CEO of the company, and man, it is not a path I ever in a million years would have expected. Like I'm not. Listen, man, I do not come from a family of entrepreneurs or business owners. I come from, employee mentality. And so I had a lot of changes I had to think through to be successful and have a chance of really making a difference for people that I had to learn,
Yeah.
And so that's it in a nutshell. And then of course, before that, I have a lot of fun doing some bodybuilding, any kind of sports that I can hurt or maim or kill myself at. I enjoy those kinds of things too. And so I try to balance it all out.
So with Lifeonaire, you started as a customer.
Yeah,
of
as a
Lifeonaire,
student.
basically.
Yeah.
So I guess no entrepreneurial background, no entrepreneurial
None.
family.
None.
What made you jump into something like that?
Well, so here I am on my first job, and I run into Steve Cook, who's the founder of Lifeonaire. I was at a property auction because I'm like, all right, I got to make this real estate thing work. Like, it's my only chance out of the job. So I started looking at real estate investing, and I see him And dude, this sounds so funny, and he blushes when I tell this story because I was literally like starstruck. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Steve Cook.
It's
You know,
him.
I've seen him. Yeah, I had his courses.
Yeah.
I had known, how of a success. I introduced myself, and shortly thereafter, he invited me into his coaching program. And I knew, I'm like, the chances of me doing this on my own were almost nothing. Now, I also was like a little bit hesitant because I had never been in any kind of coaching or mastermind program before. I'm like, what is this really? Yeah, I don't even understand this. Like, what
Yeah.
am I getting myself into? And so I started off that way, and got in under his. He was my coach, and he helped me do my first 3 deals. I was able to quit my job in 11 months,
Wow.
and I never looked back, man. It was just like it. And by the way, it was not all like roses and unicorns. Like there was a lot of there's a lot of struggles even with the coaching, even with the mastermind. But like I think it's I just kept going. I was too dumb to stop. I'm like I just got to I got to make it happen now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what were you doing in real estate? What I guess niches were you doing?
I started off with rehabbing, actually. And so I started off with rehabbing. So those first 3 deals were rehabs. From there, I started doing wholesaling for the deals that I could not take on myself. I didn't really want to scale. And so I did what I
Yeah.
could do, for with a small team. Then I started wholesaling. From there, I started migrating to new construction because I really liked the how much you could systemize new construction versus the rehabbing process. And then from there, and there's a couple not big portfolios at all, but there's some rental property in there as well. And
Hmm.
then I most recently just started basically just lending money. Like I've taken
Nice.
um, that experience and just turned it into have my money work for me instead.
So you became the bank, basically.
Yeah, yeah, private
Nice.
lending. Like people,
Yeah.
I'll be speaking at an event, and someone's like, "Hey, can you find?" I'm like, "Listen, I'm not a hard money lender. Like I'm a private money lender.
Yeah.
So I guess people I know, and people that I trust, both their character and their capabilities. And so like, but it's served really well. Like it's really worked out well for me, and I've been really really blessed with that.
That's awesome. So Lifeonaire, you get involved. What exactly? How did they help your real estate business? Because is it a real estate company? Like, kind of guide us through that.
Yeah, great question. So it's not a real estate company actually, although it's real estate heavy. The whole
Okay.
thing with Lifeonaire, like the whole MO is like, hey, it's really a 2-step process. The first one is like, hey, let's help you figure out exactly, really tangibly, what your ideal life looks like. What does your perfect life look like in every area?
Hmm.
And once we know that, now we'll use that as a template and we'll reverse engineer your business around your life. And so the whole thing is like life first, business second, but
Yeah.
but um, but it's with kind of this filter of like business is awesome, business is fun, but you can't it has to be around your life. Otherwise, you're kind of sacrificing the very thing that like the whole purpose of business is. Like the purpose of business is to support the life we want, and I think too many people get around that. So to answer your question, like most people in Lifeonaire are real estate involved at some level. Maybe it's not super actively, but maybe they have a business or they're employed. Sometimes we have a lot of people that still have their job and they love it, and they're taking some money and trying to put it on the side to invest in cash flow producing assets. But not everybody. But I'd say 80% of people in Lifeonaire have a real estate background. And you also asked like how did it help?
Yeah.
And it was by two things. There's one is having my coach Steve had done, I think he did 104 deals his first 2 years, and so here's a guy who I was blowing up his email. I'm like, Steve, like how do I do this? And I'm really taking advantage of the coaching calls, and then also being around other high quality people, and they're doing it and they're ahead of me, and so I'm just kind of seeing what they're doing and taking notes and then figuring out how to apply it to my life. So I feel like I just got really lucky by attaching my trailer to the right vehicle to get me there, man. And it wasn't, and I say this all the time. It's of any worldly influence, like it's the people that I've been around that have contributed to my success more than myself, really.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. Relationship building in a group like Life and Air. I'm part of a different mastermind group myself, and just the relationships I've built have changed my life, my business,
Right,
just everything. Seeing how they act, like you said. I mean, I didn't grow up with entrepreneurs everywhere. In our neighborhood, people weren't pulling up in Ferraris, and
right.
it wasn't that world. So just to be around people that kind of understand that. And what's interesting too is when you meet them, you realize they're just normal people,
Dude, how true is that?
right? It's
Like
just like these are average, normal guys and girls, and they're just and they want to help you too. That's even crazier too. I couldn't believe that these guys at the top actually wanted to help out.
man, you said something there that's so true. I think like when you see these people and you realize there's not that much difference between them and you, maybe they're doing a couple things differently, or they're thinking a little bit differently, or they're just further along the journey than you are, and they just have, they've been on that path a little longer. It inspires something really within you. You're like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. Sometimes you look at them, you're like, okay, I'm smarter than that person. I work harder than that person.
Yes.
What are they doing? And once you figure that out, it's just such a transference of like confidence and results that it's really cool. And what you said as well is like, I think most successful people, not everybody, but a lot of them, like once you experience a certain degree of success on your own, another deal, another zero in your bank account, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't feel special anymore. But helping somebody else, like that gives back. That feels like, that feels good.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed a lot of these people too. They went on a different trajectory. Like where I went to this route, they went this route. Not a huge difference. One thing I want to ask you too is, so I look at like, you know, coaches, mentors as kind of like a cheat code for life,
Mm.
right? Basically, it's like a cheat code in a video game. You get way ahead of where you would be at. So while that person took that trajectory and they took off into this successful realm, with a coaching group or with a coach, mentor, or something, I can get to that point a lot faster than I would have on my own. So how does Lifeonaire do that with a person? Let's say I'm a construction worker. I've been wanting to get out of there and move on to that next level in life. How would you guys help me?
Well, so the first thing we do is like, if you have to have this, what we call life inner vision. And so having this vision, and this is what, man, people come into life inner all the time. And by the way, I was this guy when I first came in life inner. I'm like, hey, show me how to make money.
Yeah.
And Steve was like, listen, I want, how about, how's your vision? How's your marriage? How's all this other stuff? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Show me that stuff later. And I ended up going through a divorce, be, partly, not solely, but partly because like I was always working.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is like we help you create your vision. And the reason why this is the key to really bring you to that next level of success is because maybe for the first time you realize like, why do I want this? Like what's that stake if I don't get it? What am I missing? Or what am I giving up by structuring my business incorrectly, by doing the wrong things, by allowing fear to hold me back? And once you have that tangible document in front of you, it kind of gives you like it's a combination of your values, your dreams, your aspirations, your identity, all rolled into one document.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, man, it sounds overly simplistic, but it's so true. Once you have a vision, the other pieces in your life and your business start to fall into place, and that becomes your guiding kind of document to like lead you to the life you want to live. And then from there, the how part becomes easy. So like, people will write their vision and they always think, well, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? The how is the easiest part of all. Like, but it all starts with the vision.
Yeah, I think a lot of people start with the how,
Yeah,
right?
totally right.
It's like you see a guy has a video and he's showing you how to wholesale houses. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wholesale houses, and that's all you do. And from morning to night, you wake up, and that's all you do. But what you're saying is, build. It's kind of like an all encompassing thing, I guess. Life. I mean, I'm guessing fitness.
That's
Family.
part of it too. Yeah.
What are all the components that we're going to be working with?
I mean, so everybody's a little bit different, but I tell you, on most people's vision, they have everything from relationships, and by the way, relationships, that's broad. Okay, well, how's your relationship with your spouse,
Yeah.
your parents, your kids? How about your friendships? How about if your spiritual life is important to you, what does that look like? How about your fitness and your health? What do you do for fun, for hobbies, for personal gratification? How about your finances? Like, are you losing sleep at night worrying about that? What about your business? These are all different possibilities for people that are all kind of, when you put them together, and here's the thing too that people miss is like they're all connected. Like you can't be super out of shape and and not see the consequences of that. So like you're gonna get home from work or from a day in the field, you're gonna be exhausted. You're not gonna spend time with your spouse because you plop down on the couch, just beat. You're
Yeah.
not gonna spend time with your kids. You're not gonna go to the gym. You're probably not gonna work on. You're not gonna be thinking as clearly and concisely as you could be for your business. And so like all these things are interrelated, like, and people miss that. So that's why you kind of need all of them, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed too, with business, with sports, with everything that I've ever done, I always felt like if I didn't keep pushing it, until the late hours at night, I would lose it. Right. Like if I
Yeah.
didn't keep, like, for sports, if I was a professional fighter and if I didn't keep training and training and training, I would lose, I
Yeah.
would lose my edge to the next guy. In business, if I'm not up until the very end of the night, consistently working on the business, I'm going to lose money. And it's not necessarily that I'm going to get more, it's that I'm going to regress. That's the
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
How do you talk somebody out of that?
So, man, I love that you're bringing this up. And so, first, let me also say, in addition to, so basically, that's fear, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
a fear. But the other side of that coin, which also gives us the same result, is like we kind of tend to glorify busy in our current culture,
Mm-hmm.
like where everything is like 10x this, 10x that, grind, hustle, blah, blah, blah. Both of those combined lead to a very, very dangerous place where other parts of your life are going to be sacrificed if you don't course correct.
Yeah.
And so the way we get people over that is, I think, we once had a student who sat down with us, and he was really impressed with himself. He was making seven figures. He had actually maybe close to eight figures.
Wow.
And he basically, but here's the problem. He was spending 60, 70, 80 hours a week working. And he sat down with one of our coaches, and the coach was like, listen, I'm not impressed. Like, anybody can make that kind of money with a decent intelligence, and if they work hard enough for long enough. And the coach said, what if, what would impress me is if you made that amount of money and you worked 20 hours a week.
Mm.
And the guy, and he felt it. He's like, and he took it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And so I think in some regards, we're looking at the wrong parameters of success, because in the kind of the wrong bar, the wrong metric, because what if you could have, and this, because here's the thing, with that mentality, you can't have the life you want and the business you want. Like, they're incompatible. But what if you looked at it this way, like, hey, I wanted to accept this challenge to make the money I need in 10, 15, 20 hours a week. Instead, I'm not asking you to sacrifice the money. I'm asking you to become a better owner, a better business owner, or an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when people overwork, um, it's and I'm gonna rustle some feathers with this, but I think in some cases, what we talked about before, it's a sign of fear, it's a sign of intellectual laziness, or a lack of creativity. Like, you haven't figured out the formula to make this work without you. And ultimately, this is a big problem for owner operators, because when the business only depends on us and we're working that much, we don't really have a business. Like, if we're honest with ourselves, we have our own, yeah, we're self-employed, right? And by the way, not knocking it, like, that's, some people love that and some people really thrive in that and they like feeling that. I would challenge you though, because listen, I have a good friend. His name is Russ. He had a brain tumor
Mm.
several years ago, but he still isn't not even close to 100%. And I talked with him fairly recently and check in on him. And the one thing that he told me that will always stick with me is like, man, the one thing I regret is not creating a business that didn't require me to run it. Because
Yeah.
now, I mean, they're struggling. And they've been struggling, and his wife supports a family. And so, like, when this whole overworking thing, it'll work for a little while. And let me also say, I know there are seasons to life and business, and there are absolute reasons sometimes you have to overwork. But if you're chronically overworking and you're
Yeah.
burning the candle at both ends, eventually it's not going to end well. There's going to be tears. Like, it is
Yeah.
not going to end well.
Yeah. So that story motivated a lot of people, and I think it will. Okay, game changed. You got me.
All right.
You got me. If I mean, I think every husband and father put themselves in that position right there, where they can no longer support their families, and maybe the business is somewhat running, but it's not running as well as it was when your friend was in charge, right?
Yeah.
So how do we what's the first step? How do we start making a business that can run on its own without us having to be there all the time? What are some of the steps?
Yeah. So the very, very, very first step is to wrap your head around the idea that this is okay and an admirable and valuable thing. Because Many people I see, I can talk to you about techniques and strategies all day long, but until you actually buy into this idea is number one possible, and number two, here's the other problem is like sometimes people get a lot of self-worth about overworking, and they identify with that, and they
Yeah.
feel good about themselves when they accomplish things. I mean, I know I do. Like when I accomplish, dude, I'm a guy who puts stuff on his to-do list after I've already done it just so I can cross it off. Like, so I feel the value.
I thought that
I
was the only
get
guy
it.
that did that.
Dude, I get it, brother. I get it. I love the feeling of accomplishment too. But if you wrap your mind around the idea and you actually see the pros and the cons and the overall long-term strategy here, that's the first step. The second step is what we teach this process. It's called seed. You seed your business, SEAD. So it's strategically eliminate, automate, and delegate in your business. And it's done in that order. And so the strategic part, that's really simple. Guess what? You already created a Lifeonaire vision. That's what you know is your ultimate goal. So that's how you use the strategy to dictate how you're going to do the other steps. The eliminate is really simple. We're just going to start. We're going to look at our business. What is the lowest 20%? You can start with 2% if you want of your business that is not producing the income you are desiring or the result you're looking for. And let's start to trim that away. Let's trim the fat. So many people in businesses, once they start running, you look at your credit card statement and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I didn't need that. I didn't need that. I haven't used that. And you have all these things you can eliminate. Now, that's not just expenses. It can be positions. It can be products. It can be offerings. It could be employees. I mean, whatever it is. That's the first thing. The second thing is automation. Automation is superior to delegation, in my opinion, because it's now when I'm referring to automation here, I'm talking about technological automation. Like, so you're using a CRM, you're using, some sort of software that's doing a lot of things for you. I believe that's superior to delegation because it's done the exact same way every time. So you can totally get a standard of performance. And then the last one is delegation, which is people. And that's, by the way, that's the hardest one as well, because business is easy until people get involved.
Yes, it is.
And so here's the rule. So you never automate. Sorry, you never delegate what you can automate.
Okay.
And you never automate what you can eliminate.
Okay.
And so you kind of work backwards in that process, and that's the step. Like now the how-to is actually, there's of course a further conversation. We can get into that, but that's like the overall framework for doing that.
Okay. Now, Jason, no one can do this job better than me. So how can I delegate
You
anybody?
could be
I
right.
had this conversation today at the gym.
Yes. Okay.
I had this exact conversation.
Yes.
A guy says, my wife runs a nail salon. She's been doing it for all these years. We make a ton of money every month on this thing, but she won't leave the salon. She has to be there at all times. So we talked a little bit about it. I was like, well, if she wants to work there all day, that's fine. If that's what she really enjoys. If she doesn't enjoy it, she's got to figure out a way to delegate. Find somebody else. How do you tell somebody how do you get someone to delegate when this is their baby? This is their business, man. They started it all by themselves.
I know, man. Yeah. Like this, nobody cares about my business like I care about my business.
No way,
I've heard it all, man. And that could be true. It could be true. However, there's two things. One, you have to be open to the assumption and the possibility that someone may actually do it better than you. And this does happen because I used to think that I was great at a number of things. And when somebody focuses on those things, they blow me out of the water. I'm like, wow, I sucked. I didn't realize it. I thought I was great. But even if they're not, let's say they're 50%, let's say they're half as good as you. Mm-hmm. What's the difference here? And let's just use so when you're in all the hats, when you're the circus conductor and you're the juggler and you're the trapeze artist, you're going to drop balls, right? And so let's say that you are a one-man, one-woman show and you're not getting to something at all because you're too busy. That's 0% output. Conversely, you have somebody who's doing it 50% as good as you. Well, guess what? 50% is greater than 0%. Yeah. And so even if they're not as good as you, it's getting done. And that's the process. Now, with that 50%, guess what? There's a really good possibility with a little bit of training, with a little bit of time in the business, they will become better. And so maybe it takes you a little bit longer to get them up to an 80%. Maybe they max out at 80%, but is that good enough? Really? Is it good enough? Like, are you sure you really need to be signing all those contracts and reviewing all of those agreements? And you know what I mean? Like you can, so that's one huge thing to consider. The other thing that I'll say is like, I've heard all the objections, like, I can do it quicker myself, and you can't trust people and I've heard it all. Like I've heard it all.
I'm sure.
And the one thing that this is going to be your dude, I'm going to get hate mail over this. Um,
His
it's,
address is
it's not that person. It's you. You're the problem. Just because you're good at something does not automatically mean you're going to be good at training somebody or hiring them or managing someone. It's a completely different skill set. And so I naturally in our head, we think like, because we're gifted at something or we're really good at it, we've developed a skill that we can train or teach or, mentor somebody else. That's not true. It's just not true. And so you have to realize it's a different set of criteria. Like, so you could say like, hey, they stole from me. And I'd say, okay, well, did you how did you screen them? Like what kind of background check did you do? Did you get a gut check? Did you do your work? Did you monitor accordingly? Like, and so most, not always, but there's a book by Jocko Willing called Extreme Ownership that has been transformational in how I lead Lifeonaire. And at the end of the day, here's the lesson: like it's always my fault, and that has been incredibly empowering.
I think that's really tough for a lot of people to do, to say it's my fault.
It is.
Once you do it one time, or you start to accept it, it becomes much easier. It's my fault that I ate that ice cream last night, and I don't have the energy to work out. It's my fault. But once you do it, it makes life so much easier, right? It's like, yeah, it was me. I did it. Okay, cool. Let's move past it. You don't have to sit there and think of, okay, whose fault was it that I ate that ice cream last night? Who can I blame for that? Right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
my fault. Cool deal. Let's move on.
Man, I think that's so true. Like, what are you gonna say? Like, oh, they use persuasive marketing, and I was
They
a
tricked
victim of
me.
their, yeah, like no, 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 no.
Sorry, stupid.
You are
It's your fault.
and well, here's the good thing about, like, once you realize that and you beat yourself up, okay, well, what are you gonna do about it? Like, what are you gonna do from here? You have the choice to make, and so that's way more empowering than letting other people make the decisions for you and blaming other people.
Yeah, and it just it eliminates something off your plate too.
Oh yeah,
You know,
totally.
all that tension and angst, I guess, is gone. Once you have once you're taking accountability for what you've done, like whatever, I'm done. Good. So that's delegation. What about automation? Not a lot of people understand like different tools for automation. Like
Yeah.
they get the idea, and they get the emails that come in from whatever company it is, but how do you do it? How do you set up automation?
Yeah, man. So, dude, I love automation. This is my little nerd coming out. So we use a software called Keep. It used to be called Infusionsoft.
Okay.
And by the way, there's plenty of other ones out there. And so automation, what you need to do first of all is you look at like what are the things that you're doing over and over again that really kind of annoy you and you feel like a monkey could do it. Like, listen, when I was working in the lab as a grad student, I'm sitting here pipetting, chemicals back and forth all day. I'm like, okay, this is not using my brain. Like a monkey could do this. Like, and so I realized early on, like there's a value in having something set up to do those things for you. And in the case of automation, what I love about it is it does it the exact same way every single time. Now, that's also an important note there, because if you screw it up, it's going to amplify your mistakes.
Yeah.
Automation is an amplifier. It's going to amplify the good stuff, but it's going to amplify the bad stuff too. So I think when it comes to automation, first thing you need to do is make sure you know the process. Like, meaning, like, let's say you have a customer onboarding sequence where you send them a welcome email, they schedule a call with you. From that call, now they set up there's a checklist of things to do on their behalf, and then they get back to you. And you do that a bunch of times to make sure this is 99% of the time, this is exactly how it works. And then you can set up automation around that. So for instance, maybe you set up DocuSign to send up an email. So you don't have to, you're not making them print it off, and you're not trying to have to scan things in. And you use DocuSign integrated with your CRM, by the way, is just the name of the tool you're using. Infusionsoft is Keep as a CRM. And then maybe you have a scheduling software like Calendly or Schedule Once that's integrated as well. So they get a link like, hey, book the call you want, the time you want around my schedule. And oh, by the way, now you have your scheduling software that looks at your calendar first to make sure you don't have anything booked there, even if so you don't double book.
Yeah.
And then from there, maybe you have you could set up some automation that would allow you that, like, so basically a lot of automation is if then, meaning like if they do X, then do this thing. If they do this other thing, do this other thing. And so, for instance, like in Lifeonaire, we have automation set up. Like, so when somebody joins our mastermind program, those they all come from me. Like it also comes from my personal email because I want it to feel personal. But I have all the things in there that also has content in that email that is specific for whatever level they signed up for. So I can custom tailor this in advance. So like, hey, if they have if they're a member of this level program, show them this content in the email. If they're a member of this other program, show them this content. And oh, by the way, if they respond to me, I can have it trigger another action. And it's just basically it's almost like the whole thing is like, once this happens, then trigger this next thing.
Okay.
That's the whole basis of automation.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say though, but that only takes 10 seconds for me to do. Right? Like one automation. And then the next one only takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next one only takes 20 minutes. But
Yep.
if you add all this time together, think how much time you're saving just by automating, these different processes.
Dude, that's huge. And the other piece of that puzzle is like, that thing that you're doing is doing two other things. One is it's interrupting your workflow
Yep.
of other things. Like, so when you have to sit there and send a 5-second email or 10-second email, you just interrupted your thought pattern, and you're more likely to it's going to take you some time to get back into that thought pattern. Say you're writing a book, for instance, and you have to send out some emails. Now you have to get back into book writing mode. Or the other piece of that puzzle is like, okay, maybe it does only take 30 seconds to write this, and maybe it only takes you a few seconds to get back into the stream of consciousness of the thing you're doing. But what is the value of that thing? Like, so let's say, because here's at the end of the day, if you're going to be a business owner, you have to focus on the highest and best use of your time.
Yeah.
And so you really shouldn't be doing 10, 20, even 50 or $100 an hour jobs. You should be doing the, $500, $1,000 activities per hour. And so those things are effectively driving down what you are making in your company because you're diluting your wages by doing like admin tasks.
Yeah. I get distracted constantly by a new email that will pop up, a new email that'll come in. I'm like, whoa, I forgot about that. Oh my God, I gotta go deal with that. So how often are you allowing, let's say, a third party to access your email? I mean, are you using virtual assistants? Are you using a person that you know personally? I know a lot of people would be a little hesitant to use maybe a virtual assistant. I use them quite a bit for especially for data research, things like that.
Yep.
But how easy is it for you personally to use somebody else to access all of your social media, your emails, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So for me, this is the craziest thing of all this. So we have two VAs that are in the Philippines, and they are great. They actually, neither of them have access to any of my personal stuff.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because so far, well, let me back up. What I have done is I'm pretty diligent in unsubscribing to things that are going to be distractions.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I stay pretty good on. But the other thing is, like, if I get an email, like for instance, we have a podcast, and we were talking about this before we started. I get solicitations all the time, like, hey, we got this great person to be on your show, blah blah blah. I have a template email. By the way, we use Google Workspace. And so it's a Gmail account, and you can, in Gmail, you can use a template response. And so I already have a template response saved that says like, hey, thanks for reaching out. I don't actually handle this part of things, but I've CC'd so-and-so who does this screening. In the future, please reach out to them directly and they can help you. All the best. And so what I've done is like trained people to reach out to our staff. The other thing I've done is proactively, like, so for instance, we have in Lifeonaire, we have 12 coaches, and sometimes they email me and they're like, hey, where's our next mastermind retreat? What's the hotel info? And I've done a really good job of like being like, of training those people in advance not to email me that information, because that's our VA's job. But when they do, I CC the VA on there, and I'm like, listen, hey, I don't know the answer to that. Actually, they're the person who you want to reach out to with these kinds of questions in the future. And then I basically just try and it's basically, this sounds bad, man, but I'm kind of training people like to not reach out to me. Now, with that being said, I mentioned before that a lot of these personalized automation emails come from me, it's from my email. But I'll tell you, man, I probably literally have less than 10 emails a month come to me from those automation emails, like literally less than 10. And
Oh.
you'd think, and I remember like, so one time, a long time ago, so I remember I was at a training with Robin Thompson, and she was doing a rehab training, and she gave out her cell phone number. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how could you give out your cell phone number? And she said, here's the thing, before you call me, you better have gone through X, Y, and Z and not been able to find the answer, then reach out to me. And I talked to her years later after I had become like a more, I'm speaking around the country, and I had a chance to ask her this. And she said very, very similar thing where hardly anybody reached out to her, but they just knowing that you had that connection to her gave you
Hmm.
a sense of peace. And so like
Yeah.
I don't really have that problem, man, that much, man. Like maybe other people do and have to put those things into place. And maybe I will in the future, but so far it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. So it's a lot of just preparation. Basically, it's being prepared and setting
Yeah, it
things up
is.
over time.
It is. And I think it's also, one, so even with my staff, for instance, this is something else. Like we got to the point where my staff, and this is again my fault. They started coming to me with
Good
with
job.
with questions, like a lot of questions, and how to do this, and what should I do with this situation, and one-off things. And I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do from now on, guys. When I love that you're coming to me with questions. It's great. I appreciate that. I'm glad you feel comfortable coming to me. But next time you come to me with a question, I want you to come to me with a possible solution or multiple solutions of what you think we should do. And then, so when they do that, oftentimes now they've already no two things have happened. Number one, they'll give me like three options. I'll be like, go with number one, or actually, no, I'll say, well, which one do you think is best? And they might tell me the wrong thing, and then I'll kind of coach them through like why I think another one is better. And then the next time they've kind of learned, they learn over time. Like we're talking about that 50% to 80%. They're
Yeah.
learning over time. The other thing is it's hugely cut down on them asking me questions. Like, and
Yeah.
sometimes they'd start an email. They're like, hold on, I remember I'm supposed to come up with this. And then they've been, never mind, I figured it out. And like, so it's like, yes, like, so I just asked, what do you think we should do? And that's had a huge influence on that as well.
Yeah, yeah, guys, this is huge. You're gonna have to listen to this like 100 times because there's so much information here. If you run a business, guys, this is gonna make your life a lot better. So Jason, like kind of a high level question. What are people doing wrong, I guess, overall in business? What do you see people doing wrong today in the business world?
Well, it depends what you mean by that. The biggest problem I see overall is people that are, number one, creating businesses that are absolutely laying carnage and waste to their life. Like, and so the very thing that's supposed to set us free ends up enslaving us. That's number one. Number two, part of the reason for that is because they haven't created a business that can run without them.
Hmm.
And so getting over their fear, getting over their identity here, sometimes people are afraid of like, hey, what would I actually do with, dude, this is a funny one. I had some students that were husband and wife, and they were arguing, and they were arguing ironically about him working too much, and his way of dealing with it, because he didn't want to deal with it. So what do you think he did? He stayed at the office longer because he didn't want to listen to his wife. And I'm like, dude, that's not a solution.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and so those two things like are the biggest things I see. Um, the other thing that's kind of unrelated but still an issue is I see people chronically undercharge for their services, or have a challenge with
I know
what
a guy
what they
like
think they're worth, right? Like,
that.
and or having some hangups about business, or even sometimes I've run across people, and I somewhat felt this way when I first started, is like, is business a noble endeavor? Like, is business something that is sleazy by nature because you're selling people things, and you're taking advantage of people, and you're going to charge someone, they have a water leak in their house, and are you going to feel bad charging them because like their carpet's ruined? Like, and so understanding that business is and really, really, really internalizing this, that business is a noble endeavor, that you are providing super real, tangible value to people that otherwise they wouldn't have. I actually had this lesson, man, for the first time, ironically. Like, so we recently sold my old house, and I sold it to an investor because I didn't want to deal with the carpet and painting. I got some young kids, and they just
Yeah.
handprints everywhere and like crayon, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, and so I went with an investor who bought it at a discount, and I was I was grateful for it. I felt like, and this is interesting because this is
Yeah.
a huge mental hangup for investors. They're like, no one's going to sell me their house. I feel like it's wrong. They're going through a divorce and I'm lowballing them.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. Like if they have another option, they'll take it. Like, of course, be ethical, tell them to be honest with them, be upfront with them, and do it the right way.
Yeah.
But it's a value. We are providing a real value as a business owner. And when you truly internalize that, you will handle business differently.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I know a lot of people, like in the real estate space, you send out letters or offers, right? Yellow letters is a pretty common thing.
Yeah,
A lot of people want to put the offer on the letter, and I do hear a lot of people saying that's too low. I feel like a scumbag. I feel like a bad guy for offering this low amount.
I know, man.
And like you said, though, if they don't want the offer, they're either going to respond to you with an angry letter or a call or something like that, or they're just going to throw it away. If it works for their situation, they're going to take it. And it's not necessarily that you're screwing them over. You're doing them a favor. There's a reason they're selling it to you for whatever price you're offering it.
That's right, man. Listen, how many of us have a mental, like, say you sell, you got a rocking chair in your house and you're gonna someone's gonna offer you $20 for it and you wanted 50. Are you gonna get all emotional? No, you just if you want the $20, you take it. If not, you just move on.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, especially investors, we get hung up with this, and it is a value. Like, and I haven't been on the other side for the first time in my life with that. And I've been investing since full time since 2011. It was very interesting to feel that, because I'd always been told that, and I kind of understood it, but not until I was on the other side where I really understood, like, I'm so grateful right now because I don't want to list it. I don't want to deal with people trying to qualify buyers and getting their loans or any of that, or showings, like none of it. And so it was really valuable for me to experience that, man.
That's interesting you say that value. They're simplifying your life and they're providing you value, right?
Yeah,
If you
what's it
think
worth
about
to you,
things as
right?
value versus getting a deal or getting something, you're providing value.
Yeah,
That's it.
totally, totally, man. And I think that's what business is. You're providing value,
Yeah.
and I think I saw this it was a sign up in the garage where I get my car serviced, and it said something like along the lines of, like, oh, you think this is too expensive? Well, did you consider, like, the location here, like our business, our overhead, the tools, the 20 years it took us to learn these skills, the lift, the person, like a list of like 30 different things. It says, like,
Yeah.
that's why this is costs what it costs. Um, and so, like, I think it's all about value and understanding, like, that you're really you're a blessing to somebody else, really.
Yeah. 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 Jason, I really appreciate it, man. What else are we missing here? What else? Have I forgot to ask you anything? What else do we need to cover here?
No, man, I think we covered a lot that people
We
are
did.
they're going to be
That was
covering a
a
lot. I
ton.
don't want to pile anything else on. I would say, just at the end of the day, if you're going to remember one thing from this entire episode, it's you gotta have a vision for your perfect life, and then and only then can you reverse engineer your business to give you that life you want, not the other way around. Because everybody tries to, like, hey, and I was this way too. I get it. Like, hey, nah, just show me the life stuff later. I just need to make money now. I want to quit my job. I need to start. I got bills to pay, and that approach is not going to work, because you wake up someday and it's 5, 10, 20 years later and you're still working your tail off and you're unhappy. Like, and that's not the recipe for success.
Jason, that was awesome. I appreciate that. How can people get hold of you?
Man, I'd say the best way to find us or me is in our, we have a private Lifeonaire group on Facebook. If you're on social media, you'll find it. Just type in Lifeonaire, you'll see it's a private group. And then we just have lifeonaire.com where you can learn more about, what we do, and if we can help you in any way, be glad to do that.
Yeah, guys, if this was the intro to Lifeonaire, if this podcast was just like the intro level to what you could get on Lifeonaire, there's a ton of information and ton of help you're going to get for your life and your business. All right, Jason, here's the big question. You ready for it?
Yes.
Here's how we finish every podcast. There's a drum roll going off. Actually, that's just my dog barking right now, but
we'll take the bark.
We'll call that the drum roll. Jason, we are LandLife. We buy and sell land all over the country. If you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Man, yeah. So this is an awesome question, by the way. So thank you for asking it. So for me, I'm looking at Western North Carolina, specifically for two reasons. And so number one, I want lakefront property. I grew up on a lake, very, very blessed, not because we were wealthy in any means. It was just total serendipity. And then secondly, I love the mountains. And so finding a Western North Carolina property that has lakefront property and is surrounded in the Blue Ridge Mountains would be amazing.
Okay, Western North Carolina, guys, if you're listening,
That's it.
I made it easy. Jason's looking for it, so that made it real easy.
Perfect,
Yeah,
man.
my wife says the same thing. She wants to live halfway between the mountains and the beach.
Yes.
We live here in Denver, and there is no beach anywhere.
You got the mountains, man. 1 for 2 ain't bad.
We got the mountains. Yeah, we're technically halfway. It depends on how far you want to go. But okay, yeah. So she always says North Carolina as well.
Dude, you guys come visit, man. You love it.
Absolutely, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. Anything
Thanks,
else
PJ.
before we wrap up?
No, man. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Awesome, guys. Till next time on LandLife.